Jesse's Destiny by Rachel Esdaille. Read by the author. Chapter 1. Destiny Granger stood in line outside of the theater where Jesse Stanton would be performing. In Destiny's mind, Jesse was the best male Christian pop vocalist in the world. 5 years earlier, as soon as Destiny had heard his debut album, she was immediately enchanted by his voice. Every note he sang went straight to her heart. Whenever she listened to his album, she felt like he was right in the room with her. This year, for her 26th birthday, her parents had bought her a ticket to his concert. The excitement mounted as she neared the front of the line. As she was directed to her seat, the atmosphere was tense with anticipation. After an hour and a half of support act, the announcer spoke over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the world-renowned Christian recording artist, Jesse Stanton." The concert hall shook with thunderous applause as Jesse Stanton appeared on stage. "Are you ready to bless the Lord?" The crowd answered with one deafening scream, and then the concert began. Throughout the concert, Destiny sang every word to every song, danced and shouted along with everyone else in the auditorium. What she loved most about the concert was that in the second half, Jessie sang some of her all-time favorite worship songs. What Destiny most admired about Jesse, other than his music and his vocal performance, was the way he worshipped during a concert. On more than a few occasions, he seemed to immerse himself in the presence of the Lord. He lifted his hands and used the fruit of his lips to pay homage to the Heavenly Father. The concert lasted for 2 hours, and finally the lights came on. Destiny, along with the rest of the crowd, filed out of the front of the doors. Filed out the front doors, where outside it was raining. Destiny had forgotten her umbrella, so she quickly rushed to her car and closed the door. She turned the key and in the ignition, but her car wouldn't start. She tried again, pushing down hard on the brake, but still nothing. She picked up her cell phone, but it was dead. She looked up and caught the eye of the security guard. "Excuse me, sir," she called. "My car won't start. is there any way I can quickly run inside for a second to use the phone? Sorry, the theater's closed. Please, sir, Destiny. Destiny could see her pleading was not going to get her anywhere. So here she was. It was 10:45 p.m. by this time, and she had no way to get home. Just as she was about to give up hope of ever getting home, she saw a car pull up in front of where she was standing. The window rolled down. "Do you need help?" a voice called. Destiny knew right away who was speaking to her, but she still couldn't believe her ears. Jesse Stanton was talking to her. Yes, my car won't start and my cell died. That's no problem. I can take you inside and let you use my phone." "Really? You would do that?" "Sure, why not?" Jesse got out of his car with his umbrella and gave it to Destiny before going to the security guard and explaining the situation. A few minutes later, Jesse and Destiny were inside. "It's really coming down out there," Jesse said. "Yes, it is," Destiny agreed. Destiny remembered suddenly that she hadn't given her name to Jesse. "Excuse my rudeness. I'm Destiny." "I'm Jesse, but I guess you already knew that." "I have to confess that as a matter of fact, I did." "Great show tonight, by the way." "Thanks. What can I say? The Lord's wonderful. There is nothing I can do without him." "That's so true," Destiny agreed. In fact, your concert ticket was a birthday present from my parents. I've loved your music from Stand Up for Christ. What a great first single." "Thanks. It's still one of my favorites as well." "So how did you start in the music business?" "Well, I started it like most Christian musicians do, with singing in church, and then in high school. In high school, I got a job as a waiter at an ice cream parlor. One day, a famous producer was in the shop and heard me singing. He said that I should make a demo, and the next thing I know, my single is #1 across the country, and I'm in the studio recording my first album. Wow, that's amazing. Do people recognize you everywhere you go?" "Not everywhere, but they do recognize me. The thing I find wonderful about the Christian music industry is that people don't seem to make as much of a fuss about my personal life. But some stuff is the same, like the long hours on the road and the label trying to work me to death." Destiny laughed. Destiny laughed. You think the label is trying to work you to death? You should meet my boss. At this comment, they both burst into laughter. After a few minutes, Jesse asked, why? What do you do for your boss to work you to death? I'm a legal aid lawyer. Jesse's face grew serious. Don't look so serious. It's actually a great job. I love helping. Contrary to what most people think, lawyers do help people. I know what you mean. People make all kinds of judgments about me because I'm a musician. They assume that because I'm 28, I'm supposed to be some kind of playboy or something. Destiny was having such a great conversation with Jesse that she forgot about her car and what she had originally come in to do. When she remembered, she said, with a laugh, I was just supposed to come in to use the phone, and we've been talking for ages. I'm sorry, I guess we both lost track of time. Jesse took his cell phone from his pocket and handed it to Destiny. When she finished, she handed the phone back to Jesse. Thanks, she said with a smile. I didn't want to wake my parents up, so I just called a cab. Are you close with your parents? Yes, very close. I love them so much. They've supported me through everything, and they're really great people. What about you? Are you close with yours? Jesse paused for a second before he answered. Actually, my mom and dad died when I was 7 years old in a boating accident. I'm so sorry, Jesse. I had no idea. That's all right. I don't talk about it much. Reporters are pretty good with me about asking personal questions. They don't bother me much about my family life. And I've never talked about it openly in the media. No one except close friends and family know about my parents. If your parents died when you were so young, then who brought you up? My grandmother. I was very blessed in my childhood because I not only had my grandmother, but I also had my church community. They made sure I was on my best behavior at all times. Jesse changed the subject. What about your car? I will pick it up in the morning. They talked for another 15 minutes until the taxi pulled up. Jesse followed Destiny out and insisted on paying the fare. It was so nice to meet you, Jesse, said Destiny. I really liked hanging out with you, he said with a smile. As the taxi drove away. Okay, with a smile. Destiny smiled back and waved as the taxi drove away. On the way home, she had to keep pinching herself. When she reached her front door, she was still smiling. This would be a night that she'd never forget as long as she lived. Life for Destiny. Life went on as usual for Destiny. She continued with her daily routine, with the normal vigor that she always had. Being a legal aid lawyer may seem rather daunting to some people, but to Destiny, it was a ministry, a chance to fight for people who could not fight for themselves. She was extremely good at what she did. Accepting 2 or 3 cases, she won victory for everyone she worked with. As well as working at the law firm, Destiny was also head of a program for troubled teenagers and young adults at the church, working with victims of rape and molestation and with people on the street really gave Destiny a reason to be thankful to the Lord. It was amazing to be able to see the difference that she made in the lives of people at the church and at work. The ability to transform lives with the love of the Lord was why Destiny took such pride in what she did. So life went on as usual for Destiny, with her 2 full-time positions and seeing her parents every Sunday after church, and whenever she could, going out with friends. Before she could turn her head, it was her birthday again. This year, she decided to have dinner with just her parents and friends around her. Sitting in the restaurant, Destiny had just turned around to talk to her mother when she heard a voice behind her. "I never thought I'd see you again," especially around the same time that we met last year. Before turning around to see who spoke to her, Destiny looked at the astonished faces sitting before her. Finally, she turned around and gave Stanton a big, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing here?" "I'm in town rehearsing for a show. What are you doing here?" "It's my birthday." "Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I remember." Destiny was so caught up with talking to Jesse that she almost forgot about everyone staring at them in amazement. Destiny had not told them how she'd met Jesse the previous year. At that time, she didn't think it would matter, because after all, it was once in a lifetime that a person got to meet their favorite celebrity. Forgive my rudeness. Would you like to meet everyone? Yes, I would like that very much. So introductions began, and included in those introductions were Destiny's parents, Dan and Sylvia Granger. When Jesse had been introduced, Destiny asked if he and his band would like to join them. "I'll have to ask. By the way, is it okay if my grandmother joins us? She travels with me." "Of course, I'd love to meet her." Jesse disappeared and reappeared a few minutes later with his band members and his grandmother. After one more table was added to accommodate the extra guests, Destiny's birthday party really began. That night, she laughed as she'd never laughed before in her entire life, and had more fun in one night than she'd had in years. Jesse was one of the most down-to-earth people that Destiny had ever met. Most importantly, she could see that he was in love with Jesus Christ. After dinner, Jesse and his band signed autographs. After leaving the restaurant, Jesse and Destiny stood in the parking lot after every guest from the party had left. The band decided to wait for Jesse in the car. "Thanks for this. I had fun," said Jesse. "No problem. My family and friends enjoyed meeting you. I had a wonderful time as well." There was a pause before Jesse said, "The human side of me would wants to see you again. But practically, I know we both have to pray about this decision before we make. Practically, I know we both have to pray about it before we make that kind of decision. I totally understand and feel the same way. We have to take some time to think about what the Lord would have us do from here. Whether he would have us be friends or something more. So, what would you like to do, Jesse? I would like to spend some more time talking to you and see where this relationship is heading. We will eventually we will know eventually where God would like us to go. They exchanged telephone and email information. Then they separated. For the second time, each hoping that the plan of God would be what was in both of their hearts. Chapter 2. Over the next year, Jesse and Destiny's bond grew, although they weren't able to see each other often because of Jesse's extremely demanding career. They talked on the phone and by email constantly. Every time Destiny heard his voice, she fell more and more in love with him. It seemed to Jesse that the first thing he wanted to do in the morning and the last thing he wanted to do at night was call Destiny or email her. It seemed as if God had come down and in such a wonderful way rained his love on both of them, and it was magical. Finally, in early December, Jesse proposed. It was the day after the first snowfall. Destiny was sitting in the VIP section at one of Jesse's shows. The show had gone on as usual. When it was time for Jesse to sing his last song, he said, "I would like someone very special to join me for this last number. Over the past year, she has brought more joy and laughter into my life than I could have ever hoped for. Miss Destiny Granger." Destiny hated it when Jesse did this. He had done it many times before. The embarrassment she felt was unmistakable. In fact, Destiny believed that was the main reason he did it. Not knowing what else to do, Destiny joined Destiny joined Jesse on stage. For my last song, I will sing something I wrote called Angel. The words were so beautiful as Jesse began. Destiny's eyes filled with tears because she knew the song was about their relationship. At the last stanza, Destiny saw Jesse reached into his pocket. Before Destiny knew what was happening, Jesse got down on one knee, and the words that came out of his mouth were, "Angel, will you marry me?" With tears streaming down her face, Destiny nodded her head, yes. The roar of the crowd was deafening, but all Destiny could think of was the ring that Jesse was placing onto her left hand. Exactly a year after the proposal, Destiny and Jesse, with their friends and family looking on, became Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Stanton. On that day, everything that could go wrong did. Destiny woke up feeling like there was nothing that could stop her. She quickly got out of bed and dressed in jeans and a turtleneck. It was a cold morning, and there had been a tremendous amount of snow the night before, and the ground was covered with a large blanket of white. Large blankets of white. When Destiny went downstairs, she saw that all her family members were gathered in her kitchen. Destiny was greeted with hugs and kisses from each of her family. The first disaster happened when she sat down for breakfast. Destiny was chewing a piece of bacon, and her mother asked her a question. When Destiny opened her mouth to answer, she felt a piece of bacon get caught in her throat. One of her aunts knew the Heimlich maneuver and was able to free the bacon from Destiny. When Destiny put on her dress, she discovered that when Destiny put on the dress, she discovered that the bridal shop had sent over the wrong size. Destiny stared at the dress, which was too big. She felt hot tears streaming down her cheeks. Everything was going wrong on her special day. And she just didn't know what to do. Just as she thought those thoughts, she heard a knock on the door. "Come in," she called. It was her mother. When Sylvia saw the dress on the bed, she knew why Destiny had been crying. "Mom, why is everything going so badly on the day that is supposed to be the happiest day of my life? Honey, marriage isn't easy. Whether it be a wedding dress or whether it be something entirely different, you and Jesse will have to face difficulties throughout your lives. I always believe that the things of life that are the hardest to get are the most are the things that bring the most blessings. You and Jesse are starting a new life today. And believe me, you'll have to face much more than a wedding dress that is the wrong size. Whatever may come into your life with Jesse, remember that God always knows best. And like me, he always has another wedding dress in his closet. Sylvia left the room and came back with the most beautiful wedding dress that Destiny had ever seen. Sylvia gave the dress to Destiny and said, "It's a little loose," as that was more in fashion when I got married. But with a few adjustments, it should be all right. Destiny was amazed at the beauty of the dress. It was long and flowing with lace sleeves. It had a floral design on the neck and each of the sleeves. "Mom, it's beautiful. I love it." After two of Destiny's bridesmaids and her mother helped her put her dress on, Destiny and the rest of the bridal party went to wait for the limousine, which ended up arriving 2.5 hours late. After all that happened that morning, Destiny was relieved to see that the church looked wonderful. There were pink and white roses everywhere, and the same color blossoms and the same color balloons and streamers were on each pew. And white candles were at the front of the church. A few moments after the bridal party arrived, the ceremony began. The bridesmaids came first. They each were wearing identical pink dresses, and they had white flowers in their hair. The congregation rose as Destiny, on her father's arm, began walking slowly down the aisle. When they got to the end of the aisle, Jesse, standing beside the pastor, took her hand at the altar, repeating their vows. Both Jesse and Destiny were crying all the way through. At the wedding reception, after dinner and the speeches, Jesse sang the song he had written for Destiny. It was the same song that he had sung when he had proposed. While they were dancing, their first dance as husband and wife. Jesse whispered to Destiny, "I must be the most blessed man in the room. I love you and can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you." "I love you too," Destiny whispered back to him. Destiny was so happy in the limousine with her husband by her side. She had no idea that within a few weeks, a tragic event would alter their lives significantly and test their marriage almost to breaking point. Chapter 3. The Stantons had the perfect honeymoon. Jesse took a 2-week hiatus, so the couple was able to go to a small cottage that was out of the way of everything. No cell phones or any other electronic devices, just the two of them. It was the kind of honeymoon that any newlywed couple would crave. "Ready to go?" Jessie called from the door as Destiny packed the last of her belongings into her suitcase. "I'll be there in a second. I'll just warm up the car. Need any help?" "No, I got it." Jesse came into the room and put his arms around his wife's waist. "Have I told you how beautiful you are?" "Yes, but I can hear it again." "Well, you're beautiful. And I love you." Destiny looked into his blue eyes. Jesse drew Destiny closer, and they shared a long, passionate kiss. When they finally lifted their heads, Destiny said, "If you keep kissing me like that, we'll never leave this cottage." And the problem with that would be, Jesse made a serious face. Destiny reached over to the bed and grabbed a pillow and started to beat him playfully with it. Jesse held up his hands in mock surrender. After Jesse's laugh subsided, he said, Okay, I'm leaving. Just don't take too long. I want to get home before next year." Destiny held up the pillow again as Jesse quickly ran out of the room. When Destiny finished her packing, she headed down the stairs. She heard the motor of the car running, and she saw that Jessie was waiting to put her bags in the trunk. Destiny took one last look at herself in the mirror and thought again how blessed she was to have Jessie in her life. The traffic was extremely heavy on the highway. No cars seemed to be moving. It took Jessie and Destiny an hour and a half to get off the highway. They had just made made the turn to exit and were waiting at the stoplight when they saw a car driving erratically, weaving between the other vehicles, hitting a nearby pedestrian, and just nearly missing a school bus. To Jesse's horror, he realized that the car had crossed the intersection and it was headed straight for their car. Before Jesse knew what was happening, he heard a crash as the car sped into the passenger side where Destiny was sitting. Broken glass flew everywhere. Broken glass flew in every direction. "Call 911," somebody shouted as people gathered to watch the spectacle. A little disoriented and confused for a second, Jesse couldn't remember where he was. When his memory returned, he remembered that his wife had been sitting in the seat beside him. "Destiny," he called. "Destiny, honey," he called again. This time, more frantically, he strained to listen, praying that he would hear a sound, anything that would tell him that she was alive. Then, fearing the words, he looked beside him. He turned his head slowly, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw that Destiny wasn't moving. When he took a closer look at her, he saw that her beautiful brown hair was soaked with blood. The seat was pushed back. The seat was pushed up almost to the windshield, and her arms and legs were in all different positions. Blood was absolutely everywhere. Jesse screamed, "Help! Somebody help me!" Just then he heard the sound of the ambulance in the distance. About 5 minutes later, Destiny was being removed from the car and hoisted onto a gurney. An oxygen mask was placed on her face. The police officer then let Jesse out of the car. "Sir, we need to take a statement from you." A million thoughts raced through Jesse's mind. Was Destiny going to be all right? What would he do without her? Through his haze of thoughts, he heard the police officer say, "Is the woman your wife?" "Yes." "Oh God, oh God," were the last words he heard himself say before he felt his legs give way. When Jesse awoke, he was in a hospital hallway with nurse standing over him. Well, hello there, said the, the nurse with a bright smile. It's not every day we have a celebrity come into our hospital. You're very lucky, she said. Just a few scratches and a bruise on your forehead. And legs. Just a few scratches and bruises on your forehead and legs. Suddenly remembering Destiny, Jessie sat up and said, Destiny, oh God, my sweetheart, how is she? At the question, the nurse's expression looked grave. I'll let the doctor tell you that. Although the nurse didn't say anything else, Jessie could tell that the news was not good. He prayed for Destiny in his heart as the nurse led him over to a chair in the waiting room. When the doctor came to meet him, the doctor looked extremely tired. He was a tall man in his early 40s with a mustache, hair, and a beard. With a mustache, that were all black. Mr. Stanton, I'm Dr. Burroughs. I'm the physician who is looking after your wife. Jessie stood and shook the doctor's hand. Shook the hand of the doctor. The doctor escorted Jessie to a place in the waiting room where they could talk. How is she, doctor? Your wife's condition is stable. There was no internal bleeding on the brain. I have just come out of surgery with her, where we reset 2 broken arms and 2 broken legs. All her major organs were surprisingly unaffected, such as her heart and lungs. The doctor stopped for a minute before continuing. Jessie saw the look on the doctor's face as he said, there has been some spinal cord damage. However, it is too early to tell what effect this will have on your wife. It may be as simple as chronic back problems, or maybe as serious as paralysis from the neck down. Jessie stood frozen on the spot, trying to take in what the doctor had said. As realization came to him that Destiny could be paralyzed, he put his head in his hands and wept so bitterly that it felt like his insides were about to come out. I'm so sorry, Mr. Stanton, but be assured we will do everything we can to help your wife. Jessie took a deep breath as he tried to imagine how Destiny's life life would be if she was paralyzed. Just then, Jesse saw Sylvia and Elizabeth, Jesse's grandmother, rushing towards him. All Jesse could do was hug the hysterical women. "Oh God, Jesse, what happened?" Elizabeth asked, with tears in her eyes. Jesse related the story. Jesse related the whole story to both women. After he finished, they both cried even harder, holding on to each other for dear life. Dan, who came in shortly after, was putting his arms around both women while trying to hold back on his own grief. "Can we see her?" Jesse waved to where the doctor Jesse waved the doctor over to where they were. Jesse explained to him that they wanted to see Destiny. When they got to the room of the doctor said, "Only one of you at a time. She's a little groggy from the anesthetic, but she still can talk and hear just fine." Destiny's mother went in first, and then Destiny's father went in, followed by Jesse's grandmother. Finally, it was Jesse's turn. He took a deep breath before slowly walking into the hospital room. The hospital room had stark white walls with a chair close to the bed. On the bed, Destiny lay on her back with a cast on all four of her limbs. The doctor had informed Jesse that it was a miracle that her major organs worked and that she could function without the help of a respirator. Jesse sat in the chair and pulled it close enough for him to touch Destiny's hair. As he stroked, he sang softly. About 5 minutes went by. Before Destiny said in a groggy voice, "Jess, is that you?" "Yeah, hon, it's me. I'm sorry for ruining everything." "There's nothing to be sorry for. I should be the one saying sorry. Jess, if I ask you something, will you tell me the truth?" "Of course, Des." "What is it?" "How bad was the accident?" Jesse paused, wondering how much he should say. He didn't want to upset her, but he didn't want to lie to her either. "How about we save that question until you're a bit stronger. Okay, Destiny said with a sigh. Jesse didn't know what Destiny's final injuries would be, but he prayed that he prayed to God that she wouldn't be paralyzed. He stayed for another 5 minutes before leaving, and before leaving the room. He just made it to the men's room before the tears started to flow again. Chapter 4. Over the next few months, Destiny grew stronger, and soon she was well enough to sit up on her own. With the help of physiotherapy, she soon was able to move her arms in all directions. One day, Dr. Barrows called Destiny. One day, Dr. Barrows called Destiny and Jesse in for an update. The progress you have been making is remarkable, Destiny. I am pleased to say you are not going to be completely immobile from the neck down, as I first thought. Jesse and Destiny both gave a sigh of relief and hugged each other tightly. After they finally let go of each other, Destiny looked up and saw that the doctor was frowning. "What is it, doctor?" she asked. "Although you're still going to be able to feel your legs and gain some movement in them, I'm afraid, Mrs. Stanton, that you will never be able to walk again." "What do you mean, I'll never be able to walk again?" "I mean, you will most likely be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of your life." No, there must be some mistake. This has to be some kind of horrible dream or sick joke. You can't be serious, doctor. Are you? Destiny looked into the doctor's face and saw no hint of laughter in his eyes or any clue that he was in fact joking. In fact, he saw only pity and sadness in them. No. It can't be. Destiny kept repeating the phrase over and over and pounding her fist into her husband's chest. "Are you absolutely certain there's nothing you can do?" Jesse said. "What about more physiotherapy?" The doctor shook his head doubtfully. "Physiotherapy will help with your wife's movement, but the part of the brain that controls the walking is totally severed. Nothing I can do will bring it back." When Destiny was able to travel, she and Jesse went to see 3 different doctors who reached the same conclusion. as Dr. Burroughs. Destiny would never walk again. 6 months later, Destiny was released from hospital. Before she came out, Jesse hired a contractor and an architect to do some renovations on the house to make it more wheelchair accessible. Destiny got the shock of her life when she realized that there were no longer stairs in the house, but ramps and elevators. All the elevators were like a smaller version of what people would find in a department store, with double-sided doors. They had sensors so that Destiny would not have to worry about the doors closing on her. Each of the 3 bathrooms was equipped with a larger than normal shower with push buttons for hot and cold water, though each shower could also be used in the conventional way. Everything else in the house, everything else in the restroom was specifically designed for Destiny. All light switches and sinks were within Destiny's reach, and everything in the house was nicely decorated and spacious. Jesse also hired someone to help Destiny with her daily needs. After the tour of the house was finished, Destiny looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. She could not believe that he had done all this for her. "I don't know what to say," Destiny said when she calmed down from her excitement. You are so wonderful to do all of this for me. What do you think I would do? I don't know. Definitely not this. I'm so glad you like it. You know how much I love you, said Jesse. Yes, I sure do. Destiny at that moment wanted so much to give her husband a kiss, but she couldn't. It was at that moment she realized that life was going to be totally different for her. Regular everyday pleasures like kissing Jesse and going into the refrigerator to get her favorite snacks were going to be a challenge. Destiny felt a flicker of sadness as the thought crossed her mind. She tried to momentarily forget what she was feeling and have a wonderful time with her husband and her new house. That night, however, the feelings of sadness and helplessness came flooding back as she lay in the dark with her husband sleeping soundly beside her. She felt a feeling that she had not felt in a long time. Loneliness. She honestly didn't know where this feeling was coming from. After all, she had Jesse and the rest of her family. And she also had a church community that loved her, that loved and supported her. But for some reason, she couldn't shake that feeling that she was alone. It was not that she was alone physically, because she could always talk to a friend or go to Jesse for a hug. This kind of feeling was more of one of emotional solitude. The feeling that no one in her life would really be able to empathize with what she was feeling inside. Even if she told them, they would not understand. After all, they were not the ones who had been hurt in the accident. Jesse had only suffered a few minor scratches, and no one else was in the car when the accident took place. That was the first of many nights that Destiny cried herself to sleep. She knew that Jesse, Dan, and Sylvia, Dan, Sylvia, and Elizabeth worried, so she didn't tell them how she was feeling. She was really feeling. Over time, Destiny became two separate people. The confident, self-assured, happy person that everyone knew and loved, and the lonely, depressed person that remained hidden until she was alone. She became the best actor she ever knew, never giving a clue to anyone how she really felt. It was like she was the Phantom of the Opera, never taking the mask off, not even for Jesse. Destiny, slowly but surely, began down the dangerous road of self-hatred, but by this time she became perfect at her game. No one noticed that she was slipping into such negative thoughts. One day she reached into the fridge to get some milk. When the milk carton fell on the floor, to the floor with a thud, milk spilled all over Destiny's clothing and was forming a puddle on the floor. When Jesse heard the commotion, he quickly got a mop and cleaned it up. Honey, I'm sorry. Honey, I'm so sorry. What for? It was an accident, and it took me no time at all to clean up. So don't worry about it. Jesse kissed his wife before going back to his music. When Destiny was sure that Jesse had gone upstairs. When Destiny was sure that Jessie had gone, she went upstairs into her room and closed the door. The milk incident had been a small thing for Jessie, but to Destiny it confirmed her feelings of helplessness. A few days later, when she went to therapy, for her outpatient therapy, the therapist, whose name was Brenda, tried to teach her a new exercise that would be helpful for her arm muscles. No matter how many times Brenda showed the exercise to Destiny. No matter how many times Brenda showed the exercises. No matter how many times Brenda showed her the exercises, Destiny couldn't do them. Don't worry, Brenda encouraged at the end of the session. Learning something new always takes time. In her mind, Destiny felt stupid, but she couldn't show that to anyone. So all she did was smile and say, "You're right, I'll get it." That's a great attitude. I wish everyone I worked with had an attitude like you, Destiny. It is so wonderful to see that you have been through so much and still managed to keep a positive attitude. Destiny gave her a bright smile. Thanks. I'll see you next week. I'll be here as usual. As Destiny drove away, she felt like a phony and a liar. But by this time she felt she had no choice. She could handle the stares and looks from strangers, but she could not handle the quote word from God that people were constantly giving. She knew that her church brothers and sisters were well-meaning. Nevertheless, when someone approached her and said one day she was going to be healed, she felt even worse about herself, that she needed to be walking to be a person. She didn't mind people praying for her healing, but it got to the point that people were giving her all kinds of remedies for her quote-unquote illness. She just couldn't take any more of people's attitudes towards her. So every time it was time to go to go to church, she would make up an excuse as to why she couldn't go. Pretty soon, Jesse stopped asking and just went by himself. About a month after she left the church, she got permission from the doctor to drive again. Jesse purchased a wheelchair accessible van that Destiny could drive. As the time grew closer for Destiny to head back to work, she was increasingly afraid what her co-workers would think about her and how she would be treated by her boss. Would she be respected and admired like she was before the accident? Or would she be put down and made to feel like less than nothing? Destiny had no idea that how people perceived her would be the last thing on her mind. The last thing on her mind on her very first day at work. Chapter 5. The halls were bustling with activity as Destiny wheeled her way through the crowd towards her office. It was exactly a year to the day of the accident that left her unable to walk. She still got shivers when she thought about how close she came to losing her life. She paused at her door and pulled herself together and then wheeled herself in. A few minutes later, Debbie Ross, her supervisor, came in. "Welcome back, Destiny. Glad to be back. I have a lot to catch you up on. But first, I'd like to introduce you to someone." Debbie beckoned to someone in the hall. A few seconds later, a man in his early 30s appeared at the door. "Come in, Frank. Come right in. Destiny, this is Frank Cajun, our newest lawyer. Frank, this is Destiny Stanton, one of the best lawyers at this firm. Nice to meet you finally," Frank said, stretching out his hand toward Destiny. "Likewise," Destiny said, taking it in hers. The two shook hands. Then Frank went back to his office and Debbie began bringing Destiny up to speed on what she had missed. The morning went by quickly with paperwork and meetings with clients that she would be working with. Finally, it was lunchtime. Destiny made her way to the elevator and pushed the button. She heard a familiar voice behind her. I hate these things. They take forever, Frank Cajun said, coming to stand beside her. I know they do, but unfortunately now I don't have any choice, any other option. No, I didn't mean. I know you didn't mean. It's okay. I'm still a little bitter. My husband and I had a major accident coming back from our honeymoon. A look of shock appeared on Frank's face. I'm sorry, I had no idea. My husband came out with just a few scratches and bruises. I came out not being able to walk. The bell of the elevator sounded and the door opened. Frank held the door as Destiny wheeled in. How awful. You know, today, said Frank, changing the subject, I thought I recognized your last name. You might. My husband is a famous Christian musician, Jesse Stanton. Really? Frank looked surprised. Frank looked surprised. My sister loves him. Come to think of it, I remember reading about your accident in the paper. It looked devastating. It was. I had to go through months of therapy, and I'm going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. The elevator came to a stop, and Frank helped Destiny wheel out of it. If you don't mind me asking, how's your husband dealing with the situation? He's wonderful. My whole house has been renovated specifically for a wheelchair. There is an elevator for me to get up and down the stairs, and he has people coming around the clock to help me with my daily needs. Sounds like a pretty neat guy. He is. What about you? How did you come to work for the company? I'm originally from California, but after my wife died last year, I moved up here for a change of scenery. I had a small law practice in California. So when I saw this company, I thought I would give it a try. And how do you like it so far? I love it, quite honestly. The people are so friendly, and it's nice to help people who really need it. They talked until the end of lunch. Destiny didn't realize how much she missed talking about something other than the accident for once, or something surrounding the accident, like therapy or her exercises. It was nice just to sit down and not have to worry about being lectured on. Her taking her medications or being fussed over for some reason. Destiny had lunch with Frank every day that week, and the weeks to follow. Pretty soon, Frank started bringing Destiny flowers and writing her notes. And writing her notes. It made her It felt so good to have someone make her feel like a woman again. Jesse was on tour all the time, so he was never home. Having Frank as company was nice, as Destiny and Frank having Frank as company was nice, as Destiny and Frank separated in the parking lot one night after work. Destiny noticed that Frank's car wasn't moving. "Everything all right, Frank?" Frank shook his head. "My car won't start. The battery must be dead. I guess I'll call a taxi and a tow truck." "The tow truck, yes, but I can drive you home. My van has the front passenger seat taken out, but there's plenty of room in the back." "Are you sure that will be all right?" "Sure, it's not a problem." Destiny and Frank talked all the way to Frank's apartment. As Frank was getting out of the van, he asked, "Do you want to come up for coffee?" Destiny knew that she should probably refuse and never do anything like this again, but in spite of herself, she said yes. As they waited in the lobby for the elevator, all kinds of spiritual bells and whistles went off in Destiny's head. She ignored them. When Frank opened his apartment door, he held it for Destiny before entering himself. They had coffee and scones. Destiny looked up at the time. "I've got to go. It's getting late." "Sure, no problem." Frank opened the door for Destiny. She was halfway out the door when Frank planted a kiss on her cheek. She stopped abruptly in the doorway and looked up at him, and for some unknown reason started backing up into the apartment. Before she knew what was happening, Frank was kissing her on the lips, and what was more surprising, she found herself taking off her seatbelt and letting Frank lift her up and take her to his bedroom. It was not like every romantic novel she had read where the touches were tender and his caresses were sweet. Although Frank was gentle and didn't hurt her in any way, Every touch felt like a violation, and every caress made Destiny want to vomit. It was worse when Frank penetrated her. It was as if she had been raped, although she hadn't. It felt like something had been taken from her. Something sacred, something that she could never get back. After it was over, Frank asked if she needed any help getting dressed. She reluctantly nodded. He helped her with her shirt and pants. Destiny transferred to her chair. At least they had used protections, so she was sure that she wasn't pregnant or something worse. She quickly left the apartment. On her way home, she had to pull the van over several times. She was crying so hard. The strangest thing was that she felt she deserved the kind of sex that she had with Frank. She wasn't crying because she had broken her marriage vows, but because she felt the way because she felt that she and Jesse because she felt that the way that she and Jesse had made love on their honeymoon when she was able-bodied was not the way she deserved to make love now. It was right there and then that she decided the best thing for Jesse would be to leave her and find someone he could be proud of. Someone he could take to the Christian Music Awards on his arm. A woman that could fulfill his manly desires. That woman would not be her anymore. She would do anything in her power to push him away, no matter how much she loved him, and it would hurt her. It really would, but it would be better for Jesse in the long run, in the long term. He could in the long term, he wouldn't have to deal with the baggage of disability. He could have a happy life with someone normal. Destiny cried even harder. And then she thought about what this change would mean. No detailed conversations that lasted for hours. No kissing. No hand holding. And definitely no making love. She had an idea that would make him want to leave. Destiny said to herself, From this moment on, I will be as cold as ice to my husband and he'll have no choice but to leave me. It will kill me inside, but I love him too much just to let that stand in my way. Chapter 6. Over the next 2 months, the once happy couple started growing slowly apart. The more apart they grew, the closer Destiny and Frank became. Destiny and Frank got to the point where they were sleeping together 3 to 5 times a week. Jesse was extremely busy preparing to tour, so he never noticed that Destiny was working late or was always working late or had to do some errand after work. On the day of the tour, at 7 that morning, Jesse had his belongings packed and loaded into the bus. He hadn't seen Destiny all morning. It was strange that she didn't come down to see him off. Jesse thought she must be too tired and went to check on her. Went to check and say goodbye. He knocked softly on the door. On the bedroom door. No answer. He knocked again, this time a little harder. Again. No answer. He'd never known Destiny to be such a heavy sleeper, but she did come home pretty late last night. After no response came, again, slowly, Jesse pulled open the door. He was surprised to see Destiny awake and sitting up in bed. Didn't you hear me knocking for the past 15 minutes? Jesse said. His tone sounded angry. No, I guess I didn't. Jesse's tone grew quieter. I'm almost ready to go to the bus is waiting. Destiny didn't say anything. Are you alright, honey? You seem a little withdrawn today. Is everything okay? Why wouldn't it be? You're leaving and I won't see you for 6 months. I'm feeling great. Jessie was shocked at the sarcasm. Jessie was shocked at the sarcasm and indignation in her voice. What's wrong with you today? It's like everything I say or do is getting you upset. Well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe it would be better if you didn't say anything at all. Then, what? Where is this attitude coming from? Did I do anything to upset you? You know what? Destiny was shouting. I think it would be best if you just go. Des, is it the fact that I'm going to be away for 6 months and you're feeling lonely and sad? Is that why you're so mad at me? Because you don't have to be. You know you can call me anytime you want to have. Okay. You know you can call me anytime you want, and you have all the numbers that you need to reach my manager or agent if it's an emergency and you need me to come home. You always have all the emergency contact information. Sylvia and Gran will take turns staying with you at night, and the church sisters will stop by to see you whenever they can. I know all that. Now will you just leave me alone? Jessie could tell by Destiny's face that she didn't want to be kissed. So he decided to leave her be and headed outside towards the bus. In her room, Destiny heard the door close, and she knew that it was she knew that Jessie was out of the house. Destiny rolled onto her side. It was in that moment she realized that her act wasn't an act anymore. She had honestly fallen out of love with Jessie. She didn't even know how it had happened, but it had. Destiny lay in bed for 45 minutes until it was time for her to go to work. She slowly pivoted into her chair and headed to the shower, where she transferred herself into her bath chair. As the water began to caress her skin, Destiny felt, at least for a moment, that her troubles could be washed away. But a few minutes after her shower, her thoughts were interrupted by the door. It was Clara who helped her get dressed. Destiny Destiny was usually talkative when Clara came in the morning, but today she didn't say anything. "Are you all right, Mrs. Stanton? You seem a little quiet today." "No, I'm just fine. Just tired, I guess." The rest of the time went by in a haze. Finally, Clara left, and Destiny was ready to go to work. At least she would be at least that would be a reprieve from her problems. At least until she saw Frank and remembered what they had done the night before. The thought made her sick. Nevertheless, Destiny had lunch with Frank and slept with him that night. She felt even worse driving home from his apartment than she had done the night before. Destiny couldn't understand why, if she didn't love Jesse anymore, she felt so awful about being with Frank. Then she wondered for a fleeting second what Jesse was doing at that moment and what he would think of her. The thought actually amused her. In fact, if any of her family members knew what she was, if any of her family members knew that she was cheating on her husband, the Christian woman that she was, they would probably blow a gasket. Destiny laughed aloud and tried to conjure up a picture of her parents and Elizabeth if they knew her secret. The image made her laugh even louder to herself. On the way to the first city, Jessie couldn't stop thinking about the argument that morning. Why had she acted that way? Was there something that she wasn't telling him? Before they left, he thought about canceling the tour altogether. After all, if Destiny wasn't ready to be by herself, he shouldn't be leaving her. The tour was the idea of his agent. He thought that Jessie had been away too long and should get back on the road again. Although Jessie loved Destiny more than anything, he missed he missed the adrenaline of being on stage and performing. It was such a rush for him to see the audience raising their hands and worshiping the Lord along with him, to see them singing the lyrics to their favorite songs, to hear them weeping when the songs touched them deeply. When the bus finally stopped, the band began setting up for the performance that night. The auditorium was a huge venue. And as Jesse looked out over the vast expanse of the auditorium, he found himself thinking of destiny. The show, as usual, was an overwhelming success. The crowd was thrilled that Jesse was back, and Jesse was thrilled to be back. Jesse was thrilled to be there to worship with the spirit of praise that was in the room. When Jesse went back to his hotel room, he decided to call Destiny. Jesse dialed his home number and prayed that Destiny would be in a better mood than she was when he had left that morning. The phone rang. The phone rang once. The phone rang twice. It rang 3 times and kept on going. By the 5th ring, the machine came on. After the beep, Jesse cleared his throat and said, "Hi, honey. It's 10. Where are you? Anyway, I'll call back later. Love you." Jesse thought it was really strange for Destiny not to be home. Jesse took a deep breath and called her cell. A computer-recorded voice said, "The customer you are now calling is currently unavailable. Please try again later." Jesse swallowed hard. There was no answer at home, and her cell phone was off. Where could she be? The Holy Spirit. And then the Holy Spirit spoke to him and said, "Your wife is in serious trouble. No matter what happens, just hold on to me and trust me." Jesse began to panic, imagining all kinds of things that could have happened to Destiny. Then the Holy Spirit brought peace to his soul. "Slow down, my son. Destiny is not in any physical danger, but she is in serious trouble. The journey will be turbulent, but remember that I am with you, and that I will never let you go." Jesse let the words of the Lord Jesse let the words of the Lord permeate his spirit and give him peace. He didn't know what would happen to him in destiny, but he knew that the Lord was on his side, and right now that was all he needed to know. Chapter 7. Destiny parked the van in the parking lot of the drugstore. She wheeled her wheelchair to where she knew she would find the condoms. She maneuvered herself to where she could reach the box and tucked it inside of her wheelchair. As she went down the aisle to the checkout counters, she didn't realize that the box had started to slip from where she had placed it. A few minutes after reaching the checkout counter, she heard a soft thud as the condoms fell to the floor. She cursed to herself and tried to reach the box. Damn, she swore under her breath. When she realized that there was no way she was going to be able to reach the box, to her horror, just as she was figuring out how she was going to solve her problem, she heard a familiar voice come up from behind her. Praise the Lord, Sister Destiny. She looked behind her to see First Lady Saunders, her former pastor's wife, behind her. "Oh, hi," said Destiny with gritted teeth. "How are you, Sister Destiny? I haven't seen you in church lately." "That's because I don't go anymore." While this conversation was continuing, the box still on the floor behind her. The box was still on the floor behind Destiny. "I will be praying for you, lady," Saunders said, walking away when she spotted the box. "Did you drop something?" "No, it's okay. I'll find someone else to pick it up." "Don't be silly. I'd be happy to pick it up." Before Destiny could say anything more, the First Lady was behind her with the box in her hands. To Destiny's surprise, a smile appeared on First Lady Saunders' face. On the First Lady's face. "Oh, how I would love to be a newlywed again. Pastor and I have a great marriage. But sometimes I miss that first year when we couldn't keep our hands off of each other." Destiny rolled her eyes. The last thing she needed to hear about was the sex life of her former pastor. She had a date with Frank that night, and if she didn't hurry, she was going to be late for work. Well, better, well, I guess better let you go, I guess. No doubt you're looking forward to your romantic evening with Jessie. Lady Saunders gave Destiny the box back. God bless you, Sister Destiny. Take care of that husband of yours. A man needs a little loving now and then. And whether we know it or want to believe it or not, we need it just as much as they do. With those words, she was gone. Destiny breathed a sigh of relief. What a fool Lady Saunders was. That night, Destiny was going to give a man loving all right, but that man wasn't Jesse, and would never be again. As Emmeline Saunders walked out of the drugstore, she could not shake the feeling that something was desperately wrong. The way Sister Destiny had acted toward her was very strange. It was as if she had something to hide. Emmeline had always known Destiny to be a happy and cheerful person, but today she had seemed almost rude. When Emmeline returned home, she found the church directory and dialed Jesse's number. Hello, Jesse. This is Emmeline Saunders calling. Oh, hello, Lady Saunders. What can I do for you? Well, I saw your wife this morning in the drugstore. She had a packet of condoms on her. I know this is none of my business, and I don't normally ask, but I'm really concerned. Destiny wasn't herself, and if you don't mind me, Destiny wasn't herself. And if you don't want to answer this question, I completely understand. But are you and Destiny having marital problems? Jesse took a deep breath with the realization that his worst fears had been confirmed. There was a long silence, and then Jesse told Lady Saunders everything, from the way Destiny had been treating him lately to the fact that they hadn't been intimate since she came home from hospital, to the fact that he suspected his wife of having an affair. After he had finished, he felt drained and utterly lifeless. Oh, Jesse, I had no idea. If there's anything at all that I could do, please let me know. I would appreciate your prayers. Just as Jesse said those words, an idea from heaven came to Lady Saunders. Jessie, do you have close family people that you can trust with this information? Yes, I do. I have my in-laws and my grandmother. Are they Christians? She asked. Very much so. I'll tell you what. We will all meet here at my home for prayer every Saturday until Destiny comes out of this demonic stronghold she's in. Myself, your in-laws, myself, Pastor, you, and your in-laws will all pray for Destiny until we see change in her life and your marriage. Jesse was speechless at the wonderful idea. He knew that Pastor and Lady Saunders were not only a powerful ministering couple, but were also prayer warriors. When Jesse got off the phone with Lady Saunders, his one remaining question was how he was going to confront Destiny. The night started the same way it always did, with Destiny and Frank leaving together after work. Frank had seemed normal all the way through dinner and all the way to his apartment. After they had been intimate as usual, Frank dropped a bomb on Destiny. They were lying in each other's arms when Frank turned to her and said, "It's over." Destiny could not believe what she was hearing. "Pardon me?" "I said it's over," Frank repeated. "What's over?" "You know exactly what I mean," he said in an angry tone. Us. It was fine in the beginning, exciting and all that, but now it's just boring. What are you talking about? I need something more exciting, something irresistible. You're becoming like a wife without the paperwork. I'm sorry, but the passion and fire is not there for me anymore. And I have to move on. Destiny became infuriated at this point. You know what? Just help me get dressed so I can get out of here. I can't believe I even started having sex with you. You are such a jerk. I don't ever want to see you again. Frank helped Destiny get dressed and into her chair. As she was wheeling out of the door, Frank hurled the most hurtful words that anyone had ever said to her in her life. All you were was an easy piece of backside to me. That's it. Destiny was so angry on the way home. She didn't even see Jesse's car in the driveway. She opened the door and turned on the front hall light. As she wheeled out of the elevator, she opened the door to her bedroom. She had just entered the room when she heard a voice say, "So who is he?" Chapter 8. Destiny turned on the light and saw Jesse sitting on the bed. "Hi," she said, almost in a whisper. "You're home early. How did the first city go? Was there a decent turnout?" Destiny tried to stall for time, but Jesse would not drop his previous question. "I asked you a question, Destiny." Jesse's voice was beginning to rise now. "Answer me." "A co-worker," she said, with a trembling voice. Jesse stood up and started to pace the floor. "I can't believe this," he said, almost yelling as he took a long strides across the floor. All at once, he collapsed. All the fury seemed to drain from his face. He put his head in his hands and started letting out the most heart-wrenching sobs that Destiny had ever heard in her life. While Jesse let the tears fall freely, Destiny stayed planted by the door. She hadn't moved since she had entered the room. When Jesse's tears subsided, he beckoned for Destiny to come closer to him. She obeyed and parked herself right next to the bed. Jesse looked at his wife's eyes. Jesse looked into his wife's eyes with his tear-stained face and said, "Why did you do this?" "I don't know," Destiny said with a shrug of her shoulders. Her face showed no emotion, not even one tear came down her cheeks. Not even one tear came down her cheeks, or a look of remorse crossed her face. The fact that she didn't appear to feel sorry for what she had done hurt Jessie more than the actual affair. Her indifference, her nonchalance, and her lack of consideration for his feelings angered and irritated him to the point where he felt like shaking her. At that very moment, he felt like doing anything to get a simple reaction. He didn't need much. He just needed some kind of reaction or explanation or both. Still, Destiny sat there like a stone figure. Her mouth was set in a hard line. Her eyes were blank and staring off into space. "You know what?" Jessie said, shooting off the bed, "until you're ready to come out of this trance that you are in and give me a straight answer, I'm going for a walk." With those words, Jessie went over to the bedroom door and gave it a good slam. Destiny heard him practically jog until he got to the front door, and then he slammed that as well. "It's done," Destiny said to herself when she knew her husband couldn't hear. "It's really over. My dream life is over." Jessie was gone. With Jessie gone, Destiny was free to show her emotions. She slowly transferred out of her chair and onto her bed. Pretty soon, she knew that Jessie would come back into the house to get his belongings and leave her life for good. The very thought of what was to befall their marriage made Destiny want to take her life at that very moment. As soon as the thought came to her mind, the Lord spoke to her. "Spirit, daughter, you are my child, and I love you. Although you have made mistakes, I'm ready to forgive you, and my love will cover your sin and restore your soul if you just ask." Destiny felt so undeserving of love, forgiveness, and protection. She pretended not to hear the Lord whisper to her spirit. On the first night she had slept with Frank, she made a promise to herself to close herself off from her husband. But she had also close herself off from God, hoping that the Lord would leave her alone. She didn't want any forgiveness from either her husband or her heavenly Father. All she wanted was to be left alone. As Jesse walked along the path away from the house, his mind whirled with unanswered questions. Why had she done this? Did he not provide enough for her? What was it that she wanted that he wasn't giving her? Did she want sex? But when he had been the one who initiated it every time, and every time she said no. Perhaps he didn't give her enough gifts for her birthdays or Christmases. He didn't help around the house as much as she wanted him to. That had to be it. He came to the park and sat on the bench near a tree to think. He thought of the first day, of the first time he had met Destiny outside the concert in the rain. How she had looked all soaking wet, standing there, so helpless and vulnerable. He thought about that night a year later, when he and his band joined Destiny and her family and her friends for her birthday dinner. The way her laugh had sounded like music. It was then he knew that he was in love with her and would marry her someday. She looked so radiant on their wedding day, and like an angel. Abruptly, his mind came back to the present. How could the affair have happened? And the more important question was, now that it had, what was he going to do about it? Divorce crossed his mind. After all, could he afford to stay in a marriage where his wife was unfaithful? Who knew if she would do it again? How could he ever trust her? Then immediately he dismissed the thought of divorce from his mind. Not only was it a sin in the eyes of God, but he loved Destiny too much even to contemplate getting a divorce. Maybe some sort of separation for a while might be what they both needed. It worked for other couples. Why not for his marriage? The people that he knew that had separated for a while said the separation did wonders for their marriage, and now the couples were happier than ever. But Jesse would worry about Destiny being in the house alone without him. Although she had people who loved her to take care of her, he still wouldn't feel right leaving his wife alone. His thoughts were interrupted by a car driving down the street close to the park. The car radio was turned up extremely high, so much so that Jesse was able to hear every sound coming from the radio. The radio was tuned to an oldie station. Jesse heard a song from a 1960s vocal group about a woman who wasn't going to let her man get away. It stated that she would do whatever she had to do he was going to love her again. Jesse started to hum along with the familiar tune. Then, without knowing it, he started singing it softly to himself. The car drove past, but the song still kept playing in his head, and the words echoed in his mind. By the time Jesse returned home, he knew what he was going to do. Rather, what he was going to let God do. Someday he would win back the heart of his wife, and he wasn't willing to give up until she fell back in love with him again. From that day on, Jesse decided that with the help of the Lord, he would win back his wife. No matter her countenance towards him, he would love her and honor her until she had to surrender. He knew that this would be a challenge, but he also knew that Destiny needed his love now. Destiny needed his love and support now more than ever before. Chapter 9. Destiny was expecting Jesse to leave that night or the next morning. To her surprise, however, he stayed. The next morning, Jesse came downstairs singing. "Hi, Des." She was already up in her chair, drinking her coffee. Destiny ignored her husband's greeting, but the strange thing was that Jesse kept on talking like nothing was wrong. "I heard the weather is supposed to be a bit chilly this morning." Jesse made his way over to the coffee pot and started pouring. She couldn't believe how drastically different Jesse was acting in contrast with last night. Destiny was sure that her husband's behavior was some kind of act, a sick game. He was playing with her mind. The calm before the storm. She thought any minute he was going to remind her about last night. And when he came home from the studio, he would pack his bags and leave, or maybe worse, he would ask her to leave. After all, this is his house. Where will I go? She wondered. To her shock, Jesse was beginning his toast, which he made while Destiny was at the table. He took his coffee and sat beside her. After a few moments of silence, Destiny broke it by saying, "Don't you want to talk about last night?" "Not really," Jesse said before taking a bite. "It was a bad night for both of us," continued Jesse. "I would rather forget it." What do you mean you would rather forget it? "You just found out that I have been cheating on you, and you would rather forget it?" "That's what I said." Jesse cleared his throat before speaking again. "However, I want you to know there is no way I am divorcing you or leaving you. I'm not even going to get upset at you anymore, because I know that the Lord will heal our marriage. So that's it. You're not even going to talk to me about your feelings? And what do you mean you're going to stay with me? After all the times I've been rude to you, after all the times I've turned my head when you've tried to kiss me, and now I've cheated on you, and you're still going to stay?" "You got it," Jesse said. "Are you crazy?" Destiny looked at Jesse like he was out of his mind. "There are thousands of women who would love to be your wife, and you're going to stay with someone who treats you like garbage?" "Yeah, I guess." "Why?" Jesse finished the last bite of his toast. He answered Jesse finished the last bite of his toast before he answered. "I married you for better or for worse. I intend to honor my promise to the Lord and you." Jesse quickly finished his coffee. "I'm on my way to the studio to finish mixing tracks for the next album." As usual, when Jesse tried to kiss Destiny, she turned away. On the way to work to go get gas, the gas station attendant was a man in his late 30s with the bluest eyes that Destiny had ever seen. He smiled as he filled up her gas. The the gas for Destiny. After he was finished, Destiny asked, "Hope this is not too forward, but would you like to go out sometime?" "Sure, I'd like that. My name is Dave." "I'm Destiny." They exchanged numbers, and Destiny drove away. Destiny and Dave went out the next evening and had a nice romantic dinner. When the night was over and it was time for them to leave the restaurant, Dave searched frantically for his wallet. When Destiny saw that he couldn't find it, she said, "I'll pay this time." "Well, I wouldn't want you to do that." "No, really, I insist." "Well, okay, thank you. I'll pay you back." "No problem," said Destiny. After the third date, Dave and Destiny were intimate for the first time. Being with Dave was worse than being with Frank had been. Like Frank, Dave was gentle with Destiny and didn't hurt her. But nevertheless, when she left his apartment, she felt like a huge weight had been put on her shoulders. She didn't understand it. Sex was sex, wasn't it? When Destiny slept with Frank for the first time, she had felt low and ashamed, but sleeping with Dave made her feel depressed. Something else about her relationship with Dave annoyed her. He never had money on him when they went out on a date, or if he needed it, or if he needed anything, he always asked Destiny for money. Like a fool, she surrendered to those blue eyes every time. She surrendered to those blue eyes time and time again. One day after the two of them had been intimate, Dave turned to Destiny and said, "I'm about to be evicted. My landlord is breathing down my neck, and he needs $1,000 by the end of the week. I don't have the money. And the thing is that the gas station is pretty slow. And I'm trying to find another job, but I didn't graduate high school. And it's nearly impossible for someone like me to make it. Please, babe, I need your help." Destiny saw the look in his face and relented. "You'll have to take a check because I feel uncomfortable carrying around that kind of money. I've got a better idea. I'm going to see you tomorrow. How about I take your debit card and your PIN number and take the money and give you back your card tomorrow, Destiny hesitated for a long moment. "Come on, baby, don't you trust me?" "Yes, I do," Destiny lied. "Then you know I will give it back to you." By this time, Destiny's self-esteem had gone down drastically. She felt so worthless and so insignificant that she was extremely vulnerable. It was because of this she agreed to Dave's plan. She wasn't surprised when he didn't show up the next evening or when she went to the bank a week later and her account was valued at 0. Destiny tried calling Dave's house, but his phone was out of service. Jesse saw Destiny's face when she came home from the bank. "What's wrong, honey?" he asked. "Nothing, Jess. Leave me alone. Okay?" She snapped before heading to the elevator and her room. By this time, Jesse and Destiny stopped sharing a room and were sleeping separately. As soon as Destiny was out of sight, Jesse went to his room and shut the door. As soon as he shut the door, tears began pouring down his face. "Lord, I don't know how much longer I can pretend that her rudeness and constant put-downs don't hurt me, when they not only hurt me, but rip me to shreds. Help me find the strength to keep going. The breakthrough is coming soon. I know it. Please keep me from falling apart. Amen." A week later, when Jesse was going through the mail, he opened the envelope with the new debit card. When Destiny went to the bank a few days later to get an extension on her bill due date and asked for a personal loan from the bank, she found that her account now had $2,000 credit. Why did Jesse still love her after all she had put him through? He had never said he knew about her financial situation. When they got married, they had agreed that their financial affairs would be kept separate. But they had agreed to take the PIN numbers of each other in case of an emergency. What was amazing to Destiny was that Jesse had not said anything to her about knowing that her bank account was empty. She had no idea how he knew, but she was glad. But she was thankful that he did. She was also thankful that he loved her enough to help her when she was in terrible when she was terrible. Even when she treated, when she was in trouble, not terrible, trouble. Even when she treated him so atrociously, Destiny cried all the way home and wondered how in the world she had been blessed with a man like Jesse. Chapter 10. Over the next 2 years, Destiny continued the cycle of having affairs, finding out that the man was no good, and then leaving Jesse to pick up the pieces that were left behind. With each affair, her self-confidence sank lower, and although she promised herself that each man would be the last, she always ended up back in the same situation as before. What started off as a way to get Jesse to leave her had quickly become a trap, an addiction from which she could find no way out. Unbeknownst to Destiny, Jesse fasted 1 week a month for her and prayed day and night that his wife would find the Lord again and fall back in love with him. As Lady Saunders had promised, a family and friends of the couple got together every Saturday and prayed for their situation. Jesse would not consider leaving and divorcing Destiny, and divorcing Destiny was out of the question, because he knew that God was faithful and that he would restore their marriage. As Destiny lay sleeping in her bed one night, she had a vision of the accident. She saw the car coming towards them, and she heard the glass shatter, and in the vision she saw something that she had never seen that day. Just as the oncoming car hit their car, 4 angels came down and surrounded their car. 2 on the driver's side and 2 on the passenger side. And as the ambulance was lifting her onto the gurney, the 4 angels moved with her. The vision continued and showed the day when Destiny and Jesse found out that Destiny would no longer be able to walk. She saw that there were two angels with her on her shoulders and two on Jesse's shoulders. When the vision went on to the most unbelievable place of all. Then the vision went on to the most unbelievable place of all, Frank's apartment. And the first time that Destiny had had sex with him. This time, however, instead of angels, she sensed rather than saw the presence of the Holy Spirit. The Lord began showing her every man she had an affair with. He began to show her that he had been in every apartment, every hotel room, wherever she had committed adultery. He had been there. Destiny woke up in a cold sweat. With a pounding heart, she took 2 or 3 deep breaths to calm herself down. When her breathing and heart were normal, she did something that she hadn't done in almost 3 years. She prayed. Dear Lord, I've done some pretty messed up stuff. I don't know even if you hear me anymore. I seem to push away everyone I love. I didn't mean for things to get this bad, I swear. When I started having sex with other men, I thought I was doing Jesse a favor by giving him an easy way out. I didn't know that I would be stuck in this world of adultery and deception. I went to church as a little girl, and up until 3 years ago, I was extremely active in the church and happy with my life. Now, I wonder what the hell I got myself into. Now I wonder how the hell I got myself into such crap. Furthermore, how I'm supposed to get myself out. I'm probably the last person that should be asking for your help. There is most likely a person suffering from some illness, from some disease that deserves your help much more than I do. I can't even ask you to forgive me because I don't deserve that from anyone, least of all you. I'm just asking you to show me how to love myself again and how to fall back in love with my husband. I'm so angry at Jesse for putting up with my nonsense. I don't know why he cares so much. Any decent man would have left by now. Jesse has gotten me out of every mess that I have been in. Doesn't he realize that he can have any woman that he wants. Instead of leaving after the accident, he stayed. I don't know why, Lord. I'm so lost and confused. I have no idea who I am anymore. Please show me myself and show me who you are. I guess I've talked your ear off. Thanks for listening. Amen. All of a sudden, waves of peace swept over Destiny. She was able to sleep better than she had done in years. The next morning, she woke up and went to shower as usual. But this morning was different. Destiny could no longer explain it. Destiny could not explain it. But she felt lighter and had a spring in her step. She didn't know what the change was, but she knew that the prayer she had made last night had something to do with it, with this sudden change. When Clara came to help get her dressed, Destiny talked to the woman more than she had done in months. When she saw Jesse for breakfast, she gave him a smile. At work, she did her job with joy and helped other lawyers when she could. After work, Destiny decided to take a different route home. On the way to the clinic On the way to the clinic, she saw where she could get tested for STDs. Fear gripped her heart because although she had usually used protection when she had slept around, occasionally she had not. The next week, she was sitting in the doctor's office to have the test for all of the STDs. Destiny had not told Jesse that she was going to the doctor to get tested. She knew she had to tell him. When Jesse got home from the studio, Destiny was waiting for him. Fearing one of her outbursts, he took a deep breath before he went into the kitchen where she was sitting. Jess, I need to talk to you. Sure, honey, what about? Destiny took a moment and then said, my gosh, there's so much to say that I don't know where to begin. That's all right, he said. I'm right here. Take your time. Remember that day I got home from hospital? Yes, very well. After the tour, I wanted to kiss you, but I couldn't. It was at that moment I realized that my life wasn't going to be the same. Slowly, I began to slip into a deep depression. I felt so hopeless and worthless to everyone. Why didn't you tell anyone how you were feeling? I guess I didn't want to worry or burden anyone with my feelings. At that time, going to church made me feel horrible. People kept coming up to me, making me feel like I wasn't a person. Not only did I stop going to church, I felt that I wasn't good enough for you or for the Lord. Jesse interjected. So that's why you started having affairs? To push me away? Destiny shook her head. Pretty soon, I felt myself fall out of love with you. And then I didn't know what I was doing. By that time, I had extremely low self-confidence and didn't care much about myself anymore or anyone else. You might think it was fun sleeping with all those different men, but to tell you the truth, Jess, the first time I did it, I felt like I was going to be sick, but the more I had sex with these guys, and the more they used me, the more my body and spirit became hollow. Destiny stopped her story to see that Jessie was squeezing her hand and looking right into her eyes. Destiny continued. About 2 weeks ago, the Lord gave me a vision. He showed me the accident, and he showed me that there were angels surrounding the car. And he showed me the day when the doctor told me that I would never walk again. 2 angels were with both of us on two angels were with both of us, 2 on my shoulders and 2 on yours. God also showed me that he was with me in every hotel room and every apartment when I was committing sin. After the vision, that enabled God to show me myself. After the vision that enabled God to show me myself and show me who he was, I told him everything in my heart. I even told him that I didn't understand how you were still with me after all these years when I had treated you so badly. Jesse, the next morning I woke up feeling like a new person. After work that day, I took a different route home. I found a clinic that did did testing for STDs, and today I had an appointment. Now I just have to wait for the results. Jessie was speechless after Destiny had finished her story. Tears were pouring down her face by this time. Oh, Jess, what if I have an STD? What am I going to do? Jessie walked around to the other side of the table where Destiny was sitting, and for the first time in 3 years, they shared a hug. Oh, honey, don't say that. Think positively. He confronted Destiny while holding. Okay. Oh, honey, don't say that. Don't say that. Think positively. He comforted Destiny while holding her tightly. When Destiny gained control of her emotions, she pulled away from Jessie. He could tell that she had more to say to him. Jess, I'm so sorry for everything I have put you through these past 3 years. And I know that it's going to take a lot on my part. But you have my word that I will do anything I can to prove to you that I'm deserving. To prove to you that I'm deserving of your trust and of your love. I know I have a long way to go, but with your help and the Lord's guidance, I will pull through. I know you will, Jessie said, comforting her. They held each other for a long moment. This was the first conversation that they'd shared in 3 years. Over the next 2 weeks, before Destiny got her test results, she prayed and fasted like she had never done before. Slowly, her renewal process began. God had to take every polluted part of her and cleanse it. This meant Destiny was forced to face the accident and the aftermath of it, which meant facing her deepest fears and regrets and coming to terms with who she was. Destiny began to search the scriptures. Destiny began to search the scriptures. She read about the woman who committed adultery and was about to be stoned. Jesus said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." No one threw a stone. This passage of scripture taught Destiny that everyone has made mistakes, and cheating on Jessie was no worse than anybody else's mistakes. Destiny also read about Mary Magdalene, and how people judged her for what she did, what she was involved in. And when she went to Jesus, all he said was, "Go and sin no more." This passage taught Destiny that no matter what she had done, she could be restored. Pretty soon, Destiny could not wait to wake up and read her Bible. Every passage brought new life into her. She understood herself better than she ever had done so previously. Even before the accident, every time Destiny opened her Bible, a new revelation would leap off its pages. It was like God was washing her from the inside. And what was being washed on the inside was soon being projected outside. As the Lord began working on Destiny's as the Lord began to work on her, Destiny's former personality began to return. And soon she was once again the person her family and friends loved. One morning during Destiny's renewal process, a brown envelope came in the mail. It had the name and address of the clinic where Destiny had taken her STD tests. "Jess, the results are here," she yelled. Her husband came from the studio where he had been recording. "What do they say?" "I don't know. I haven't opened them yet. I wanted you to be here in case the news wasn't good." Jessie squeezed Destiny's hand and let go briefly so Destiny could open the envelope. She held her breath before looking at the page. When she looked up, Jessie noticed a big smile on her face. All of the results are negative." Jessie breathed a sigh of relief and hugged his wife. That Sunday, Destiny and Jessie went to church together for the first time in 3 years. Everyone was so happy to see her back, and pretty soon it was as if she'd never left. She was as active in the church as she had been before the accident. Destiny started a program at her church for people who had been in accidents like herself. The program was a complete success. Destiny had never felt better about her life. She had become active in her church again. She had also received a promotion at work to the level of partner in her legal aid office. All the issues from the accident were almost gone. But there was still one lingering problem in her marriage. One problem not yet dealt with that could destroy her and Jesse forever. Chapter 11. Although Destiny had rededicated herself to the Lord and had fallen back in love with Jesse, they still hadn't made love. Destiny had forgiven herself for what she had done, but she still didn't feel she was good enough for Jesse, especially in the area of intimacy. In the case of Frank and the other men, it never mattered if she could offer them pleasure or not, because she knew sooner or later she would be gone and she would be on to her next fling. With Jesse, it was totally different. He was her husband, and he loved her from the inside out. Destiny feared if she didn't please him, he would leave her or at least cheat on her. She had heard of similar scenarios where the husband didn't want his wife anymore, so he went and found someone else. These thoughts were playing on her mind when Jesse came home from the studio. He had been putting together tracks for his new album and rehearsing all day. So by this point, he was extremely tired. Destiny, I'm home, Jesse called from the hallway when Jesse entered the living room, he saw Destiny reading. She looked up. "How was your day?" "Fine, just fine. The album is almost done. Just one more track to be recorded. And it is... And that's... Okay. Just the album is almost done. Just one more track to be recorded, and that's it." Jesse sighed and asked, "How was work?" "It was challenging," said Destiny. I have this new case, and it's probably the toughest case I've had in a while." "It's late. I'm tired," sighed Jesse. "I am too," agreed Destiny, and they both proceeded to the elevator. When they arrived, the floor where their bedrooms were, Before entering his room, Jesse stopped and leaned in to give Destiny her usual kiss on the cheek. He knew that she was still a little nervous with him, and although he wanted her more than he could say, he didn't want to rush Destiny into anything for which she wasn't ready. When Jesse bent down to kiss his wife, Destiny didn't turn her head in time, so instead of her cheek, Jesse ended up barely grazing her lips. The hunger and passion for his wife exploded in Jesse, and before he could stop himself, he slowly moved his mouth to the center of hers. Destiny surprised herself by making no move to stop him. The kiss was like anything either of them had ever experienced before. It was not only passionate, and every other feeling that came with a kiss that was long overdue, but they each felt that the Holy Spirit had come down and was enveloping them with his love. When Jesse finally lifted his head, they both were speechless, and without a word, Destiny took off her seatbelt, and Jesse lifted her up and carried her into his room. With every touch and caress, the Lord was there in the room with them. It was as if those 3 years of their marriage, that the locust, cankerworm, caterpillar, and palmer worm had eaten, were being restored. As they climbed higher in the worship, their lovemaking became less physical and more emotional. Became less physical and emotional, and much more spiritual. An exact picture of Christ and his church. As Destiny felt her husband go beyond the veil, it was like the Old Testament tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled her. The glory of the Lord filled her and erased every thought of insignificance and inadequacy, and replaced it with the reassurance that Jesse loved her with or without her disability. And her disability did not interfere in the least with Jesse's passion for her. When the couple finally pulled apart, both breathless and exhausted, Jesse looked over and saw that Destiny was crying. Concerned, he asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. it just it's just that I never experienced anything so beautiful in my life. Me neither, Jesse agreed. The couple didn't sleep that night, but instead continued to bask in each other until the sunlight peeked through the curtains. The next night, Jesse and Destiny were in each other's arms when Destiny asked, "If I wanted to know something, you would tell me the truth, right?" Jesse nodded. "Anything." "When I was cheating on you and in my mess, did you ever think about cheating on me?" Jesse paused before saying, "I was tempted once." Destiny looked surprised. What? What happened?" "Well, I came back to my hotel room after the show I came back to my hotel room after a show, and there was a beautiful blonde, a beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes in my room. I don't know how she got past security, but nevertheless, there she was. She started saying that she heard about my problems. She heard about the problems I was having in my marriage, and said that when I was on stage, I looked like I needed to relax. Then she asked if I wanted to have a little fun. For a moment, I honestly didn't know what to say. I hadn't slept with anyone in a while. I hadn't slept with anyone in a year and a half at that point. My body was aching. It must have been the Lord that made me politely refuse the offer. What made you stay faithful to me when you knew that I was out having multiple affairs? Destiny moved closer to Jesse, and Jesse held her tighter. Almost every night I would picture you and I together, eating, going to church, spending the afternoon at the mall, and making love. I also knew, Jesse continued, that I was righteous, and he has never seen the righteous forsaken, and he would reward me in time for my patience and my willingness to sacrifice myself to keep my end of our marriage covenant. How did I become so blessed to have a man so committed to me that when I betrayed him over and over again, he found the strength to love me and pray me back in love with him? Only the Lord can do something like this. Destiny said in the shelter of her husband's arms. A few weeks later, Destiny started feeling tired. She thought it was her workload at first, but pretty soon she could hardly do her job during the day, and all of a sudden she felt like she was going to be sick. She felt dizzy, and her stomach was doing flip-flops. On her way home from work, she had to stop at the drugstore to pick up a few items. While she was going through the aisles, she saw something that might tell her the reason why she hadn't been feeling well the past few weeks. When Jesse came home, he saw his wife sitting at the table looking worried. "Destiny, what's wrong, honey?" "Jess, I have to tell you something. But first, I think I've dropped something in the bathroom. Could you pick it up for me? For me, please. Could you pick it up for me, please?" "Are you sure you want me to pick it up? You want me to go now? You look so distraught. I can get it later." "Please, Jess, I really need this thing. Can you get it now? And then we can talk." "Okay, Destiny." Jesse got up to go. When he got into the bathroom and looked around the floor, When he got into the bathroom, he looked around the floor. After 5 minutes, he stretched his back into standing position. On the sink, he saw a little white object. When he looked closer, he realized that it was a pregnancy test. As he looked from the sink, he saw the test. He saw the positive plus sign. Jesse ran to where Destiny was sitting and gave her a hug. "You mean we're really going to have a baby?" Destiny nodded, smiling. 9 months later, Sarah Elizabeth Stanton was born. About a year after Sarah was born, Destiny started having dreams. She and Jesse were in stadiums, churches, telling their story of what God had done for their marriage. One morning, after Jesse sat down at the table, Destiny said, "Honey, I've been having dreams." "What about?" Jesse asked, while putting a piece of toast in his mouth. "Of us in churches and stadiums, telling the story of the accident and the affairs, and how the Lord restored our marriage." "That's a great feeling," Jesse said. "My spirit tells me that we should really do this, not in stadiums at first, but maybe in church. I think our story would really help a lot of people. So many people are struggling with problems like we had, and some of them are even worse. I honestly believe our story will bring hope to a lot of people and let them know that God's grace and mercy can pull their marriage out of any difficulties. I don't know. Sarah is just 13 months old, and my new album is being released next month. I don't think that now is the time to be going anywhere or starting anything new. Just pray about it, Jess, okay? Promise me you'll at least do that. I will. The next week, Carl, Jesse's guitar player, asked to speak with him privately. What's going on? Jesse asked. Carl took a deep breath before answering. I got to leave the band. Jesse was speechless. Carl was the most reliable person in the band. Why do you have to leave? Well, my wife Christina and I are getting a divorce, and it's too hard to work. And it's too hard right now for me to work and worry about all the stuff I'm going through. While Carl was talking, Jesse had a brilliant idea. Why don't you and Christina come over and have dinner with me and Destiny tonight? I think we'd be able to help you. Carl agreed, and that night Jesse and Destiny shared their story with Carl and Christina. After they were finished, Carl said, I had no idea that you two went through so much. The fact that you're still together is remarkable. Thank you so much, Christina said. You have really helped a lot. You've really helped us a lot with your story. Our problems are not nearly as challenging as yours were. And if you can do it, and if you can get through what you got through, certainly we can get through our problems and save our marriage. Thank you so much. After the couple left, Jesse said, You're right, Destiny. After the couple left, Jesse said, You're right, Destiny. We do need to tell our story to other couples. Who knows how many marriages the Lord can save using our story. About a month later, the Stantons spoke at their church about what they had experienced, and the response was overwhelming. The response was overwhelmingly upbeat. The couples were blessed and touched by Jesse and Destiny's story. Pretty soon they were receiving requests to speak at marriage seminars and churches. At every church and event that they spoke, marriages were healed by this story of of tragedy, triumph, and restoration. Very soon, the couple were receiving requests to speak at. Very soon, the couple were receiving the request to speak at events all over the world. There were so many requests that Jesse decided to leave the music business and travel with Destiny full time. Marriage that started out with pain was now helping others to find peace and contentment after difficult times. Their story was their story was also teaching people that God was in control of every situation and that He could heal people everywhere they hurt. Copyright 2015 by me, Rachel Esdaille.